What's up, everybody? I am your host, a batshit insane teenage girl who thinks Holly's a bitch and her dad is hot, which is not a sentence I ever thought I would say. And that is my co-host, your newly elected prom king, who's got a hole in his head and a serious will to live. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we head down to the Outback for a little bit of torture, kidnapping, and high school heartbreak. Because today we are diving into Sean Byrne's The Loved Ones from 2009, which was picked by a man who has one of the greatest internet names to ever grace our screens, Flesh Suit Man. And I want you to know, good sir, that I was really disappointed that your parents didn't really name you Flesh Suit Man. I seen his real name in his email.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was gonna say you never know.
yeah. It was a little upsetting, you know.
Could have named him Frank.
I was hoping, you know, his first name was Flesh Suit, last name Man. That's totally possible. He could still legally change it, I
Is his
assume.
first name at least Frank?
No, it's
Oh.
Joffrey. But yeah, man, I do want you to know too, I came this close to picking Don't Go Into the House. You have no idea. I went back and forth on this a ton. The good news is it is on my list of movies to cover, though. But thank you for sending in some really good recommendations. All of the movies you sent in were bangers, and I'm actually really excited to watch all of them. You have excellent taste in films.
Yeah, we actually have another one of his requests
Yep.
that are, I guess sometime in June, hopefully we'll get to it.
I think we've mentioned it on the show quite a few times over the years how Australia has been gifting the world with some fantastic horror films. And I think at this point, it's officially safe to say, like, I have become a Australian horror film fan.
Yeah,
They got some great movies, man.
definitely had some bangers over the years.
Yeah, if you know of some great down under horror films, send them my way. I will be happy to look into them and check them out. I already own some of the like heavy hitters, you know, like Wolf Creek, Lake Mungo, The Babadook, Late Night with the Devil, Talk to Me. But I am definitely open for some more stuff.
We'll let you know. We've covered those last two, and there's one of those on that list that is coming very, very soon as one of my picks.
Is it Wolf Creek?
No.
Oh, I've almost picked Wolf Creek many
That
times.
one's really good too.
Yeah.
I do love that movie. Got a great steelbook of it, but Lake Mungo, man,
Oh man, that movie
that
hits me
one's
right in
that's a
the feels.
heavy hitter every time.
But yeah, this was a very interesting film. I think looking at it through a wide lens, this story is very predictable, but the details throughout the story that really, you know, they really kind of throw you off and they definitely keep you on the edge of your seat. Like, this is very much kind of a revenge type movie somewhat. And I think there are definitely parts of the story that I kinda seen coming a mile away, but the little details in between, I was really surprised about that stuff, some of the twists and connections.
I wouldn't call it a revenge film. I mean, you get revenge at the very end, but
Which
generally a revenge film is the plot is based around the revenge, whereas this is more of a torture film.
well, yeah, but she asked him out, he says no, then he goes and fucks his girlfriend, and she
Oh,
decides to kidnap him and torture him.
yeah, but generally with a revenge film, I feel like you have to have a good basis for revenge, and this poor guy didn't do anything wrong. Like, he
Oh, yeah.
literally is just taking his current girlfriend to prom. Like, he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, a non-justified revenge film. And I will say this, when it comes to The Loved Ones, this movie could have fizzled out probably, you know, a few years after it was released if it wasn't for actress Robin McLeavy, who plays Lola Stone. She did an amazing job playing one of the most demented teenage girls I've ever seen. Uh, you know, I'm a grown man, and she frightened me. She's definitely demented and sadistic, but yeah, I think she carries the movie. I think she gives the movie legs, and I think she did a fantastic job. She played a very believable, crazy bitch that's just so easy to hate and root against through the movie.
Yeah, this movie does such a good job at making you feel extremely uncomfortable. Like, it has some moments that are just, like, has you squealing in your seat, uncomfort, and also dread.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of
dude,
dread.
extremely dreadful. They do a really good job at showing the trauma that's left behind on these characters, like, the character building, I think, is really good. I think overall as a story, man, this movie is really good.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I agree. So, one quick announcement before we jump into things here. You may have seen we kind of somewhat extended Listener Appreciation Month. And the reason for that is because one, we actually had quite a few movies picked by different people. American Werewolf in London was submitted a few times. The Devil's Candy was requested many times. I Spit on Your Grave has been asked about many times over the years. So we decided to move some of them into June instead of just like shelving them completely. And also, I think The Devil's Candy is getting a big physical release here soon in June as well. So we're going to be covering that. And the other reason was because it was very difficult to choose just 4 movies. You guys did an amazing job submitting requests this year, and we went back and forth discussing it. We watched all the trailers, we hashed it out, and we eventually just said, fuck it, let's just start putting June's schedule together. So, great job on you guys for submitting movies, and we're going to kind of extend it a little bit.
Yeah, I actually just put in my order for Second Sight, The Devil's Candy, and a big reason why I wanted to push that off until June is anybody that's familiar with Second Sight, they do amazing interviews. Like, normally they go through and hit cinematographers, directors, producers, actors, like whoever does the score. They do a really good job at providing information that you cannot find on the internet. So it really helps us do a deep dive on it. And I think the Second Sight's box set's releasing on the 23rd of this month. So by mid June, we'll be well into that and studied up.
Yeah, and just a heads up, we will eventually be going back to our Monday releases, probably as we head into June. We got a temporary scheduling thing going on at the Horror Pod Laboratory, but yeah, it won't last forever, so be on the lookout. We are going to switch back to Monday. But with that being said, are you ready to get dressed up and head to prom where we dive into the loved ones?
Am I actually going to get to head to prom?
Yeah,
Or am
we're
I going
go.
to get kidnapped?
We got a prom. We got a prom right after this, and hopefully we make it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my pink dress on, so let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and you don't want us to spend the whole dance getting drunk and high in the car, give us a review. The Loved Ones is a 2009 Australian horror film written and directed by Sean Byrne in his featured directorial debut. It stars Xavier Samuel and Robin McLeavy. The film follows a teenage boy who finds himself at the mercy of a classmate's demented party after he declines her offer to attend the school dance. It was produced by Mark Lazarus, Screen Australia, Ambience Entertainment, and the International Film Festival Premiere Fund. It was released on September 13th of 2009, had a budget of $4 million and a box office of $358,000. Really important thing to note about that box office, it did not get a wide release, at least not here in the US. It pretty much hit festivals. Paramount did do a release in about 4 or 5 big cities for like 2 days, but yeah. So I wouldn't hold that against it.
Yeah, one thing I was actually watching the special features with one of the producers on Lake Mungo just like 2 days ago, and I found out that the distribution works a lot different in Australia, which is how a lot of these really good independent movies
Yeah, I know that
end
the
up getting
government
screwed.
helps
Yeah.
fund a lot of that stuff, which, that's awesome. That's great. I wish we did that over here.
Yeah, but it also works as like I can't tell you exactly how it's set up, but there's one main distribution, and I believe it's partially the government has something to do with that as well. But if you don't get picked up by that, your
Good luck.
film is essentially not getting in theaters over there.
Yeah, I remember I learned that I think it was, Late Night with the Devil got a lot of help from that, and I believe it was Talk to Me got a lot of help from that government fund. So before we dive into the film, let's talk a little bit about writer and director Sean Byrne. So Sean got his start in the early 2000s by directing award-winning short films while attending the Australian Film and Television School, where he learned his way around a camera while filming shorts like Sport, Sunday, and Ben. But he really hit it out of the park with his 2007 short, Advantage Satan, which positioned him on the global festival circuit and premiered internationally at the Sundance Film Festival, which is what eventually led him to finally get the backing and support to do his first full length feature film, The Loved Ones. Once he began the writing process, he developed a very clear and specific vision, focusing on making the characters three-dimensional rather than a well-rounded horror film, believing that if he treated it more like a serious drama, the horror would take care of itself. He also spent a lot of time watching directors like David Fincher, Quentin Tarantino, and David Lynch to keep him focused on quality filmmaking. When it comes to Brent and his surrounding peers, Sean decided to model them after characters in John Hughes' The Breakfast Club. You had the rebel, the stoner, the girl next door, the goth, and the wallflower, creating a wide range of personalities that audience members could relate to while watching the film. And this is what eventually led him to the concept of the film itself, saying, what if I took the rituals of prom, like the dress up and the crowning of the king and queen, just like in Brian De Palma's Carrie, and I moved the prom to a single location like in The Evil Dead, making the rituals of prom the very instrument of torture. And that is how The Loved Ones came to be. Now, once everything is in motion, production begins, where he quickly cast the heart and soul of this horror film, 28-year-old Robin McLeavy, who accepts the role of Lola Stone, a psychotic and sadistic teenage girl obsessed with finding her one true prince. And in order to prepare her for this role, he instructed her to research the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, watch Rob Reiner's Misery, specifically Kathy Bates' performance, watch Natural Born Killers, and a bunch of Quentin Tarantino films. Leads back to Misery.
Yeah.
So, filming kicked off in Australia with the entire movie being shot in Melbourne, Victoria, with the interior school scenes being filmed at Box Hill Senior Secondary College and Kew High School, which lasted a total of 4 weeks. After post-production was finished up, the film was then sent off to the rating board where it received the dreaded R18 rating by the Australian Classification Board. Thankfully, this was appealed by the review committee, officially changing the film's rating to an MA-15 due to the comedy aspect in the film, arguing that it actually mitigates both the sadistic parts of the movie and lessens the impact of the violence. The film was then screened at several festivals, including the Toronto International Film Festival on September 13th, 2009, the Hong Kong International Film Festival in April 2010, AFI Fest on October 31st of 2009, the San Francisco International Film Festival in May of 2010, the Dallas International Film Festival, and finally the South by Southwest Film Festival, also in 2010, where it did pretty well, quickly gaining popularity with little to no marketing campaign based off of pure word of mouth with hardcore fans of the genre. And not only did it do well with diehard horror fans, but critics also loved it, with Rotten Tomatoes rating it a whopping 98% and an average score of 7.24 out of 10 based on 58 reviews, as well as landing the number 49th spot on the website's top 100 horror movies. I like this movie, wouldn't have it number 49 on my top 100 horror movies, but I get it.
That's
It's very independent. It's
Rotten
kind of yeah.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's good. It ain't that good. So
I think it's a really good movie, but Rotten Tomatoes looks at things through a different lens. I mean, there's some of
agreed.
my favorite horror movies of all times that Rotten Tomatoes absolutely fucking hates.
True. Since the release in 2009, the film has been applauded for its tongue-in-cheek approach and its main twist towards the end, leading it to be nominated for many awards, but only walking away with the Cadillac People's Choice Awards at the 2009 Midnight Madness Film Festival. So let's talk a little bit about home media. So, because of the sadistic violence depicted in the film, it was unfortunately rated NC-17 by the MPAA here in the US, leading to the contents being toned down to a less violent rated R version, with Paramount releasing DVD copies in the US sometime in November of 2009. Now, Paramount did eventually release an unrated DVD version here in the US, but still to this day, a Blu-ray has yet to be released in the United States. Wow.
Yeah, I think I've seen that there's only one Blu-ray that has been released overseas.
Close. So this did not stop the UK. As of October 8th of 2010, they received a Blu-ray unrated copy that is unfortunately region locked. Japan, however, has a region-free Blu-ray of the film that came out on August 5th of 2015. But it lacks any extras aside from 2 trailers and is now, unfortunately, out of print. So there are 2. There's a Japan one and a UK one. I would put my money on the UK Region B version. It sounds like they got the best version.
Was the UK one Studio Canal who put it out?
I don't
Because
know.
when I looked up to see if they had it on Blu-ray or 4K, the only Blu-ray I could find was Studio Canal, and it was a overseas, but it did say that the disc was region free. So I'm not sure. It falls under Region B, but Studio Canal had released it not locking the disc.
Well, I didn't go like directly to like a listing of any of these, so it could be just labeled Region B, but it like how Umbrella
Yeah.
does it. That might be the case, but officially Japan has the region free version, but it's just a movie and 2 trailers. It sounds kind of like the UK probably got the best release of this movie. It kind of sucks for people that don't have a region free player, but I highly recommend, like, if you collect movies, save up the money and get a region free player. It's worth it, my opinion. But
Well, from what I read, if you don't have a region free, look up the Studio Canal version. It's apparently supposed to be not region locked, although it's supposed to be region B. You know, Umbrella does that a lot. But I'm very surprised that there is not other boutique labels that have jumped on
I'm surprised
releasing this.
Umbrella does not have this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Via Vision, they're also Australian company. Yeah. Even like a Second Sight or just there's a plenty of boutique labels that I'm surprised that did not have a copy of this thing out yet.
All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, 98%. IMDb, a 6.6 out of 10. Letterboxd, no surprise, 3.3 out of 5. But the Google average audience rating is a 4.2 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find this movie for rent on YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV, Fandango, and Amazon Prime for $3.99. It is unfortunately not streaming anywhere. Actually had to buy the movie just to cover it. I think it's definitely worth the $3.99 if you want to just rent it though. All right, so you ready to dive into the plot?
I am.
All right. So we start out by meeting our main character, Brent Mitchell, a 17-year-old high school student who recently got his driver's license, and we immediately jump into the story where we see him and his father, Dan, taking a drive through the countryside while chatting and listening to the radio. And right off the bat, when I seen how like super chill and cool his dad was, I was like, oh fuck, he's gonna die. Like I knew it. I seen it coming from a mile away. I do love the banter between these two though. They're both like so different, but you can tell, they love each other, and it's definitely much different than you get the other dad-son relationships where the dad hates the music the kid listens to, the teenage kid wants nothing to do with his parents. This is a complete opposite kind of relationship, which is why I knew he was going to die. If you have a shitty dad in the movie, he's going to live. Don't worry about him. So anyway, they are talking, singing, and just having a great time together when Dan goes to light up a cigarette, causing Brent to just for a second take his eyes off the road when suddenly Dan yells, "Watch out," causing Brent to swerve the car and slam into a tree, where it is then revealed that a half-naked teenage boy having absolutely no reaction to the accident is just standing in the road. We then jump to 6 months later, where it is soon revealed that Brent's father, Dan, died in the crash, leaving Brent the lone survivor and full of guilt. And an important thing to note here that we don't really find out for quite some time is the boy in the road was never found. Like
Yeah.
he dipped out after this wreck.
Well, they don't address that at all. So you don't know if this was like supernatural thing.
Yeah.
But you got to think, with Brent's dad dying and Brent being in a serious car accident, that he may not have had memory of this kid in the road at all.
That's
His
true.
dad died.
That's
so
true.
There's a very good chance that this wasn't even brought to the attention of authorities.
Good point. I didn't even think about that. So after the time jump, we cut to the high school where we see everyone celebrating the end of the school year as Brent stands at his locker, covertly buying a bag of weed from his best friend, Jamie. Now, Jamie seems like a really good friend, and despite the traumatic situation Brent is dealing with right now, he never seems to treat Brent with like kid gloves, kind of acting like everything's normal. That way, Brent is not constantly reminded about that accident. And during this conversation, we find out a few important details. One, Brent has been dating this girl named Holly for a while, and her parents have just left for a trip overseas. Two, there's a big school dance coming up with many of the students planning to attend an after party to get a little fuckered up. And finally, three, Jamie has a big crush on the local goth girl named Mia, who he plans to ask out. The way Jamie looks at Mia is still to this day how I look at goth girls. They're just something magical about dark eyeliner, black nail polish, and a hatred for normalcy that just calls to me. So anyway, Mia comes up, paying no attention to the two boys, grabs some stuff from her locker, which prompts Jamie to finally work up the courage and ask her to the dance, to which she says yes, leaving Brent happy for his friend. After Jamie walks off with Mia, Brent is approached by a shy, kind of timid, awkward girl wearing a pink shirt named Lola Stone, who then works up the courage to ask him to the dance. Now, something that I found interesting is, here in the US, this would be called the prom. But in Australia, where the film takes place, the end of the year dance is not referred to as a prom, but simply as the formal or school formal, because it is the only school dance where you're required to wear formal attire. And another fun fact, even the Australian DVD Blu-ray release refers to Brent becoming the prom king of Lola's Twisted Fantasy, but Australian formals don't have an equivalent to an American prom king and queen.
Yeah,
So
that's weird.
Yeah. So after an awkward silence, Lola finally drops the bomb on him, asking him to take her to the dance, but Brent nicely informs her that he is already going with his girlfriend Holly, leaving Lola stunned. I didn't notice it the first time I watched it because she does such a good job at like concealing her real personality, I guess. But the way she looks at him when he walks off is chilling. You can almost see the red hot hate bubbling inside of her.
Yeah, that's the first thing I noticed was the crazy. Like, you can just see the best word I can come up with, it's just the crazy in her eyes when he says no. And even if this guy did not have a girlfriend, she waited until, like, the day of prom to ask him. Like, there's a good chance he would have heard he had plans
Yeah.
to go with somebody else, even if he didn't have a girlfriend. So, yeah, it's a very interesting choice to wait until the day before to ask him.
So after that, Brent then catches up with Holly in the school parking lot where we find out that she just got her driver's license as the two then head to the car to make out and do other stuff. And while this is going on, we see that Brent is kind of teasing Holly about another girl asking him out to the dance, but refuses to tell her the girl's name. This leads to Holly having sex with him while continuously asking him the girl's name, which he never tells her. But the important part here is we see Lola angrily watching them through the window, which is always super fucking creepy. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is mega fucking creepy. If you have an obsession with somebody and you're listening to them fuck somebody else, that's
Go
definitely
get
not
help.
good.
Immediately go to a psychiatrist.
Yes.
So while this is going on, we get a really important detail here. As Holly removes Brent's shirt, we see that he has a necklace with a razor blade charm that he has sharpened down in order to cut himself as a coping mechanism. So basically, because of the shame and guilt surrounding his father's death, Brent has resorted to self-harm in order to deal with his emotions, and this becomes really important throughout the movie.
So on my first watch, when she takes his shirt off and, we see those marks, I thought that that was from the car accident, but no, those are actually razor marks. And this razor essentially serving as a physical representation of the scars of losing his dad and the survivor's guilt and him blaming himself for the whole thing.
Yeah. So, after some hot, steamy car sex, Holly drives Brent home, where she asks him if he told his mom about her getting her license today and driving them both to the dance. But Brent tells her no, his mom's just gonna have to get over it, leaving Holly emotionally confused. She then tells him that she loves him and will pick him up around 7, but Brent just responds with a kiss on the cheek and the name of the girl who asked him out earlier, Lola Stone. Holly laughs this off, telling him that he should go with her, joking that maybe Lola wouldn't mind having an emotional retard for a boyfriend. Once inside the house, we see that it's pretty obvious Brent is suffering from some kind of depression as he sits in his dimly lit room listening to heavy metal on max volume while writing something on a card, when suddenly his mother Carla walks in to talk to him. And she immediately asks him how he's getting to the dance. And this is where we find out why Holly was asking about this earlier. Because when Carla finds out that Holly is driving them, she gets very concerned. Because remember, Brent had just gotten his license when his inexperience contributed to Dan's death, and she doesn't want to lose her son because of another new driver making a similar mistake. And this does not go over well with Brent, leading to an argument between the two, where Brent once again blames himself for the death of his dad as he then storms out of the house to blow off some steam.
And once again, he doesn't mention swerving somebody in the road or that it wasn't his fault at all on the accident, which makes me even further believe that he does not necessarily remember at this moment swerving the kid in the road. I think that that may very well be something that maybe he thinks about later or he thought about, but, after a traumatic car wreck and probably some head injuries, doesn't necessarily think's real. So his mom probably does think that it was just his inexperience as a driver that caused the accident.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of that because we do see him remember it eventually, but something kind of triggers that
Yeah.
memory. That's a good point. And his dad is actually the one who yells, "Watch out."
Yeah.
So it wasn't Brent necessarily that swerved because he seen the kid. It was kind of an immediate reaction to his dad. So we then see Brent and his dog head to a local park or something where there's like this big 3 or 4 story cliff that he starts to climb. And right before he gets to the top, he lets go with one hand, leaning back as far as he can with his eyes closed, and thinks about what it would feel like to just let go and plummet to his death. So I've read a lot of people saying that he was thinking about committing suicide here. I don't personally think that's exactly what was going on. I think that he was doing something called the call of the void, which is a sudden and brief urge or mental image to do something dangerous and self destructive. As psychologists believe it's actually a safety mechanism of the brain, which is the mind's way of testing an irrational scenario to remind yourself of why you want to live and stay alive. This is actually very common. A lot of people describe it as imagining swerving your car into oncoming traffic or like into a tree, stuff like that. And it's also sometimes a symptom of anxiety or OCD and is known to be sort of a coping mechanism after surviving a tragic event. So I don't think he was necessarily on the verge of killing himself or going back and forth. I think he was just getting to that line to make him kind of realize he doesn't want to die.
Well, yeah, I think that the best comparison to that is him self-harming with the
Yeah.
razor blade. He flirts with the edge of death as part of his, survivor's guilt and trauma of getting through the car accident that took his dad's life. Yeah, I don't think that he was considering that at all. I think this is no different than just kind of playing
Being
playing on that
self-destructive, yeah.
edge, yeah, right on that edge of life and death.
So as Brent hangs there, so close to death, which would instantly end all of his pain and suffering, he suddenly slips, quickly catching himself, which snaps him back into reality and makes him realize that he doesn't want to die, he just wants the pain to stop. He then climbs to the top, sits on the edge with his dog, and begins to numb his suffering with a pipe full of weed. But this relaxing moment is cut short when he gets a phone call from his worried mom. But as soon as he answers it, we suddenly see a man come up behind him, place a rag over his face, and hold it there until Brent passes out, dropping his phone, leaving Carla to hear her son being dragged away. You guys may be asking what happened to the dog. Not going to go into detail about the dog. You guys know how I feel about dogs in horror movies. We do touch on it a little bit later on, but yeah, we don't got to go into detail. Now, we cut over to Jamie, who is all dressed up for the dance, wearing a respectable blazer and tuxedo t-shirt. I don't know if you do, but I remember around the 2007, 2000 time frame, the tuxedo t-shirt was all the rage. You always had the goofy guy who wanted to wear the tuxedo t-shirt.
Yeah, it's a pretty awful choice.
I think what started it was it Step Brothers? Or Will Ferrell? No, maybe it was Old School. I know it was like one of Will Ferrell's wacky characters wears like a tuxedo t-shirt to like an event.
I went into high school in 2009, and everything I see in Australia, I'm like, damn, man, being a teenager in Australia seems like a good time to come up. But I didn't know anybody who I didn't personally go to prom, wasn't my thing, but I didn't know anybody that did go to prom wear a tuxedo shirt. It's pretty
So
awful.
so I think we had about 3 or 4. I think my prom was probably in 2006.
Jesus.
Yeah, I do remember seeing pictures. I didn't go to my prom. I actually went and started the pre-party after party. I remember a lot of prom people came to one of the parties I was at. I skipped the prom. I don't give a fuck about the prom. Yeah, I ended up at this house where a lot of the people who just didn't care about the prom kicked off the party. But I do remember one kid, and he was the fucking, like, class clown throughout the years in school, he showed up to the party with, like, legitimate dress pants, tuxedo T-shirt.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
know there was
pretty
for a
bad.
fact one, but I remember seeing pictures of, like, multiple people. But anyway, he arrives at Mia's house to pick her up, and this is where we learn a couple of things. One, Mia, like most teenage girls, wants nothing to do with her parents. Two, her father is a local police officer, which becomes important later on. And three, Mia's dog is really into sniffing Jamie's balls.
And Mia is wearing a black dress. It's just very much my weakness.
Yeah,
I would have had a problem at prom.
I I am
I'd
a
have been wearing a boner to prom.
yeah, I am a sucker for girls like Mia, 100%. So we then get a quick scene of Carla going off to the cliff where Brent was abducted when suddenly we cut to Holly arriving to pick him up for the dance as Carla comes running up asking if she's seen Brent, which leaves Holly very confused. After a few attempts to call him and getting no response, they are suddenly surprised when the dog arrives back at home, very injured and covered in blood. The dog does not have a good time. This sends Carla into overdrive as she begins to panic, where we then see her call Mia's dad, Paul, informing him that Brent is missing and his dog has been stabbed. After that, we then catch up to the man who kidnapped Brent as we see him drive down a long dirt road, stopping at a house that's pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And after parking out front, he throws back a black tarp, revealing the still knocked out Brent to his very excited daughter, Lola Stone. So, full circle, here we are. This is where the movie really starts to kick off.
Yeah, the dog is a big deal because, Brent is very emotionally unsteady, and they know that. Even the mom says, like, he's done stuff like this before, obviously since the accident. But when the dog comes back, clearly have been stabbed, now they know that something very serious has gone wrong.
Yeah, when I was writing the episode, I originally wanted to just fairly, briefly mention the dog
It's very important.
because I didn't really want to talk about what happens to the dog. But I started thinking about it and I was like, I gotta mention it a couple times because when you think about it, if the dog wouldn't have came back, none of the rest of the movie would have happened.
Yeah, this is what takes Holly from thinking that, he may have just ditched her before prom to now knowing that something seriously bad happened to him.
Yeah, and it just it kind of causes Paul to take it seriously, which is what starts this investigation. We do find out later on, or earlier we found out that Brent has run away before, and the dog was the only reason that the police took it serious. And if the thing with the dog wouldn't have happened, the police would have just assumed he was gone. It would have been days before they actually started looking for him, and you know, things would have been too late by then. So, this means that the man who kidnapped Brent is Lola's father, Eric Stone, who she constantly refers to as daddy throughout this movie. And yes, it gets much weirder between these two. It reminded me of Frank. Come to daddy. So,
Yeah, but worse.
I just it that I don't know if it was Hellraiser that ruined it for me or other things, but like an almost grown girl, referring to her dad as daddy all the time in a movie. It just, I immediately know something bad. Something bad's up with this. Something not good is happening with these two. So I actually did not expect what we got though. I didn't see that
No.
coming.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie makes you really uncomfortable.
Well, throughout the rest of the episode, like I don't refer to him as daddy, like kind of she does. I think he's even listed in
Yeah.
the credits as
Please,
daddy.
please don't call him daddy.
His name is Eric.
Yeah.
We're going with that.
Yeah, let's stick with that.
So we then cut to Lola's bedroom, which is extremely disturbing as she flips through a scrapbook while listening to a very annoying song that will 100% get stuck in your head. We see her room is very girly with a lot of pink. tons of magazine pictures of half-naked men with the heads ripped off posted on the walls, kid drawings of castles, princes, and princesses, and the most disturbing of all is a bookshelf full of Barbie dolls placed in sexual positions, essentially having a goddamn orgy out in the open.
She's like the female Kurt Cobain.
She's the
Remember the montage of
yeah.
Heck?
Yeah, but this girl has got to be the most sexually frustrated, horny teenage girl to ever exist.
Yeah.
Like, everything in her room is, like, sex. But it's, like, it's hard to explain. It's almost like a child brain and adult sexual brain, like, smashed together, and I think that's what makes it so uncomfortable, because those 2 things are not normally put together. So, she then flips to a new page in her scrapbook, pulls out Brent's yearbook photo, glues it to the page, and colors a heart with a big red dot on his forehead with a red marker, which doesn't make any sense to us right now, but that will a little bit later. Her dad then walks into the room, handing her a gift bag where she then excitedly opens it, revealing a set of pink heels and a matching bright pink dress for her big night. Because as you are about to see, Lola and Eric plan on having a full-blown prom right here at home with a bit of a twist. And we can immediately see here that Eric is just as crazy as Lola is, absolutely obsessed with making his daughter happy no matter the cost, which is backed up even more when we see Lola prepare to try on the dress right in front of her dad, who is struggling to keep his fucking eyes off of his daughter's near naked body. I did not see the daddy-daughter thing coming.
Yeah. This is just a really uncomfortable,
It is.
emotionally fucked up scene. You can tell he is uncomfortable, but he also, like, the camera angles hint that he was also, trying not to look. And it's this they have this weird aspect going on where she is very much sexually frustrated and is okay with getting undressed in front of him, and you don't know, like, you can tell he knows it's wrong and he tries not to look, and you don't know if he's just staying there to make his crazy daughter happy, because obviously becomes very clear that this is not a girl that you want to upset in any way.
Yeah,
Uh
she blows her top. She's like a
or
volcano.
or if he's just as equally as fucked up as her, and we kinda learn more about that as we get further into the plot.
So after that fucking weird scene, we then cut to the kitchen where we see Brent finally start to wake up. And he is now wearing a tuxedo and tied to a chair, totally confused about where the hell he is and what is going on. He's like, wow, what kind of weed did Jamie sell me? It's like, I fucking hit that bowl and I wake up in a strange house tied to a chair in a tuxedo. Like, what day is it?
Yeah.
So as Brent comes to, he sees Eric, now also dressed in a suit, sitting across from him. Lola is wearing the pink dress, covered in fucking body glitter. I hate body glitter. And there's this older woman who is also wearing a dress with a scabbed up hole in her forehead and a blank look on her face. And this is where he discovers that he has been kidnapped by Lola's family and both his hands and feet are bound. He also notices the kitchen and living room are decorated for a party with a disco ball lit up, banners on the walls, and balloons on the floor, leading him to start freaking out. Lola then picks up a big ass needle, filling it with bleach as Eric gets up and holds Brent still, allowing the teenage girl to inject the liquid directly into his neck, destroying his vocal cords. As we then hear his scream slowly fade out into almost a whisper, Lola looks up at her father with a smile as they both say, "We can't hear you," followed by laughter. So, bleach does indeed badly fuck up your vocal cords. Basically, when bleach touches moist tissue, like in the throat, it forms hydrochloric acid, which then burns and scars the tissues in the body, instantly burning the throat and vocal cords, and in many cases, permanently causing vocal cord paralysis. Now, in some cases, you can get some of your speaking ability back, maybe allowing you to whisper or even talk with a lot of hoarseness, but you will never get your normal voice back. Another interesting fact here, this was based off of American serial killer Robert Bordella, aka the Butcher of Kansas City. He was primarily active in the mid to late 80s and was known for kidnapping, torturing, raping, and murdering male prostitutes he kept in his basement. He was also known to use bleach-soaked cotton balls to burn their eyes and inject drain cleaner into their throats to destroy their vocal cords, along with many other horrible things that you can read about on his Wikipedia page if you want to know more.
Wow, that's fucked up.
Yeah. I started looking into it because I was kind of wondering, like, would it be possible for Brent to eventually get his voice fixed?
You
And
said
no.
male prostitutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robert
Had to
Bordello.
make sure they didn't get away, 'cause
Yeah.
probably not too easy to find.
Yeah, it's weird too because he actually, I think the first one was like a friend of his, and he felt bad after a couple days and took the guy to the doctor to get like fixed up, and then changes his mind on the way back home and fucking tortures and keeps him again and then eventually kills him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked.
Yeah, definitely a weird case to look into. So anyway, after this, Lola excitedly orders her dad to take a picture with her sitting on Brent's lap as he struggles to recover from the bleach injection, with Eric asking her to take one more with the old comatose lady that they call Bright Eyes. And a couple of things stand out here. So Lola, despite being very close with her father, doesn't hesitate to boss him around, even barking orders at him to hurry up, with him having absolutely no ability to stand up to his daughter. And we see that she has some serious resentment and hatred towards Bright Eyes, which is odd considering this old bitch seems like she can't do anything for herself and has no fucking idea what's going on 99% of the time. So back at school, we see Jamie and Mia arrive at the dance, but it becomes pretty apparent that Mia isn't ready to go inside yet, opting to instead hang out in Jamie's car, getting high, drunk, and listening to punk rock. I said, hell yeah, Jamie, that's exactly what I would have done in this situation.
Yep.
So, back at the Stone residence, we are forced to listen to Lola and Eric eat slimy chicken and drink fucking milk in silence as Brent and Bright Eyes just stare off into the distance, confused about what is going on here. I hate the scene, the eating of the chicken. Ugh.
Yeah, you know I have the phobia where I can't stand to listen to people eat. So this scene was hard enough as
You had
it
to mute it.
was.
Yeah.
And then the finger licking good thing. Good
Yeah.
God. Man, this shit was bad.
So after attempting to jam chicken and milk into Bright Eyes' mouth, the demented Lola then turns her attention to Brent, sitting on his lap and forcing him to eat the chicken while asking him if it's finger looking good. After he refuses to participate, Eric gets up and brings over a hammer, which eventually leads to Lola demanding he suck on her finger. And after he finally gives in and does, we see Lola begin to get very sexually aroused, which starts to worry Eric, prompting him to slam his hand down on the table, causing Lola to yank her finger out of his mouth. Brent then tells them that he needs to pee, thinking they might actually let him go to the bathroom, but he quickly discovers that that is not the case, as Lola unzips his pants, pulls out his dick, and forces him to piss in a glass right in front of her. The scene where she slams down that glass of milk was disgusting.
Yeah. Also, it's important to point out Bright Eyes because the trailer does a really good job at hiding this whole aspect of it. And you're very much like, who the fuck is this? And is this her mom?
Yeah.
And if this is her mom, it's very apparent that Lola does not like her, obviously hates her, and that if she is still alive, that Eric has done everything he can to keep her alive because it is by no choice of Lola,
Yeah.
which is a very interesting dynamic to keep in your mind in the background.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I originally assumed that something had happened to Lola's mom. I don't know, maybe she dies or something, and her dad goes and kidnaps this woman, so he has some kind of partner, and the only way to get her to stay without him having to essentially chain her was to, like, lobotomize her, and I thought that's why Lola did not like her. Like, this is not her real mom, and I don't wanna blow it yet, but I was wrong, and there's another reason. So after he pisses in this fucking glass, Lola tells him that she should bite it off so Holly can never have it again. And this sets Brent off, causing him to lean the chair back in order to kick Lola right in the chest as hard as he could, sending her flying across the dining room, landing flat on her back. Eric immediately runs to help her while Brent finally manages to untie his hands and escape the house. The only problem is, they're out in the middle of nowhere, meaning there isn't many places to hide. Eric then runs out and gets in his car, where he ends up spotting Brent and chasing him up into a tree. And once Brent is cornered with no place to go, Lola starts to throw rocks at him until one finally hits him, causing him to fall, landing on the hood of the car, temporarily knocking him out, where the two psychopaths then drag him back inside for some more torture. I've never been chased by murderers, but I would think you'd have to set that fucking tree on fire to get me out of it.
Yeah, also, I would never run up a tree. Not with them watching me. Like, that's the last place I would go is a tree. Like, there is no escape. And he can't even yell.
Yeah.
So he can't yell for help. You climbed up in a tree in front of them. And then I just want to point out Lola's fucking laugh when she starts throwing the rocks is so creepy.
Yes, she did. That's why I said, man, like she carries this movie. Like without her being so fucking good at being insane, I don't know if the movie would be anywhere near as good. Like,
Yeah, she's super creepy.
and it makes, like, so much sense that, like, one of the things that she bases the character off of is Kathy Bates in Misery. She also the whole reason that movie, like, we just talked about that, the whole reason that movie is still, such a big movie and can't really be remade is because it's hard to top that kind of performance. So, here's where things really start to get bad, because once he is secured back in the chair, Eric removes his shoes and hammers a kitchen knife into his foot, essentially nailing him to the floor and preventing him from escaping again. And while this is going on, a demented Lola straddles him, begging him to cry. But Brent remains defiant, biting his lip while looking directly in Lola's eyes, refusing to give her what she wants, which just makes her more and more mad. How does a teenage girl get this heartless and brutal? It's like she is
Well,
way worse than her dad, who obviously started this whole thing.
as we
We
learn,
will
she
find, yeah,
gets some practice.
yeah, we will find out. It's kind of becomes one of those situations where Eric, starts this thing, that he does, and he introduces it to his daughter at some point, and I don't even think he has realized that he has created a far worse monster than he was.
Well, I don't know for sure if Eric did do this thing, if it was a thing that he did prior to doing it to make his daughter happy when she was a kid. Like, it may very well be that he did this for the first time to stop his psychopath daughter from being upset.
Yeah, that's possible, but the and I think some part of that's true, but we do find out she is quite young when this kicks off. And so obviously it's not her idea, like he started it. He brings it to the table, but
We also don't know how far back this Lady Bright Eyes is lobotomized.
Yeah, she could have definitely been victim 1, for sure. And I honestly too, like, I think there is a possibly interesting backstory here. We'll
Yeah.
probably never get it, but there is one.
Yeah, this couldn't they could make a very good prequel with the right cast and the right story.
So we then cut to police officer Paul, who has left his home in the middle of the night to go inspect the cliff where Brent was kidnapped, where he discovers the teenager's iPod, phone, and bag of weed, confirming Carla's suspicion. He then heads to the house to give Holly and Carla the bad news, leaving them panicked and confused about who or why anyone would kidnap Brent. Back at the House of Horrors, we see things have calmed down a bit as Lola brings out her scrapbook to show Brent, which is about to reveal some serious information. First, we see a missing poster for a young boy named Keir Willis, who Lola makes fun of because apparently he was a big baby. And as she turns the page, we see an 8 or 9-year-old Lola standing next to the kid who is bound in the same chair that Brent is sitting in, with Lola dressed in a fairy costume and a big smile on her face standing next to him. So this starts, for one, the victims are children. And for two, Lola is involved with this pretty much immediately, with her being I would say under 10 years old,
Yeah.
which is mind blowing. So next we see another missing poster for a kid named Duncan Fletcher, who, according to Lola and Eric, pissed himself while they were torturing him. She then turns the page again, and for the second time, we see a young Lola proudly standing next to Fletcher, who is half naked, zoned out, with a bloody carving on his chest depicting a heart with Lola's initials in the center, along with a still bleeding hole in his forehead. She then turns a few more pages where she again stops on another missing poster for a boy named Reese Agnew, who she pretty quickly moves on from, claiming he was quite boring to play with. And finally, she reaches the last one, who she introduces as the one who got away, a teenage boy named Timmy Valentine. Now, the whole time she has been going through this book, Brent has kind of refused to look down at any of it. He is basically trying to hold out from giving her what she wants because that's his only way to really fight back at this point. But when she reaches Timmy's page, the picture catches his eye. And right next to the picture is a cutout of a newspaper article that says, "Policeman's family in despair following son's disappearance." And this is what the article says, or at least what I could read on the screen. So it says, the search continues for local policeman Sergeant Valentine's son, Timmy Valentine, who went missing on Wednesday night, and local emergency rescue groups have joined in to help find the high school student. He was last seen at school, and the police asked for anyone to speak out if they notice any suspicious activity. And right as she turns the page, we see Brent's wheels start turning, where he suddenly remembers the boy who was standing in the middle of the road, half naked, covered in blood, which is what forced him to swerve and hit that tree. And it is at this point where he not only realizes that Eric and Lola are like serial killers, but they also essentially caused the death of his father. And right as he is figuring this all out, Lola looks at him and smiles while turning the page, and she tells him that Timmy was never found and is most certainly dead by now. So if Brent wouldn't have taken his eyes off the road for those like 2 seconds, they would have seen Timmy standing in the road, they would have rescued him, and eventually led the police back to Eric and Lola's house, where they would have like most certainly been arrested, and this would have sent Brent's life in a fucking completely different direction.
Yeah, and for Brent, this is another reason why I don't think that he remembered until he seen this picture what he swerved. And if he did remember it in the hospital after the wreck, it probably wasn't mentioned because he thought it was, a symptom of the head trauma. Because you gotta think that he knew this kid. He went to school with this kid, and he was very well aware that this kid was missing at the time and that the police were looking for him. So had he said after he woke up in the hospital that I seen a bloody kid that the whole town's looking for right before I swerved, they probably would have put some resources into looking around the car accident.
Yeah,
And this kid's never found.
he's never found. Lola and Eric never find him. He's obviously, still out there. So,
He's
yeah, if the police would have just kind of concentrated around that area, they probably would at least find what's left of him. But the fact that essentially Lola and Eric, what they're doing, leads to Brent's father's death, which has kind of destroyed Brent's and his mom's life. And now he's now sitting in this seat.
yeah.
And it's just a full circle thing. But, also we have the big reveal that Eric and Lola have been kidnapping, torturing, and murdering young boys since Lola was like fucking 9. Like, holy shit, I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
That just kind of came out of left field. And what's even more crazy is Lola has been able to keep her true personality hidden so well at school over the years. Like, when she asked Brent out, she totally plays it off like she's a shy, quiet girl who has like almost like an innocent crush on Brent. And then when Brent tells Holly about this, she totally laughs this off. Like Lola's known as, almost like a nerd, Like Lola,
She's probably socially awkward,
yeah,
socially inept.
she doesn't give off like popular girl vibes, but she also doesn't give off extremely violent, insane girl vibes either. So she
No,
has
which
to
is why she's probably been turned down by so many of these boys over the years that then in turn her and her father track down and kidnap and murder is because she is the probably really shy, socially awkward girl in school.
yeah, and
Because she's not ugly.
no.
She's not ugly by any means. So for her to have this many issues, she's probably very, very socially awkward.
Yeah, and it's almost hard to kind of wrap your mind around somebody being that fucking insane and sadistic, but keeping this mask on essentially 90% of their life out in public. But when you think about it, like look at big serial killers. That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy did it very well for a very long time.
Well,
Jeffrey
he
Dahmer, not
was
so much. He was always just fucking weird, but
well, somebody like Ted Bundy was very charismatic and was not socially awkward, but we see with a lot of serial killers, they don't have the best social. They're not all the John Wayne Gacy's and Ted Bundys of the world that are very charismatic. Some of them are very socially awkward.
yeah. And, this, I won't let the cat out of the bag yet, but this scrapbook has one more big secret in store for us later on. This is not the final, revelation that this book is going to tell us. So anyway, once Lola finishes up with Timmy's page, she then flips a few more pages where we then arrive at Brent's, which shows his yearbook picture along with the 2 Polaroids they took earlier after they injected him with the bleach. And it is at this point where he realizes that unless he does something major, he will end up just like all the other boys in this book, missing and presumed dead, leaving Holly and his mother with absolutely no answers as to what happened to him, allowing Lola and Eric to move on to the next victim without anyone ever realizing all the shit that they've done. Once she shuts the book, they both pause for a moment, looking at him, trying to see his reaction. I noticed a lot of their little torture thing they do is they want the reaction.
Oh,
Because you
yeah.
notice they're constantly, they'll do something or say something, and then they're both like glued to him like he's about to make a fucking announcement or something. It's the reaction that they want.
Well, they want the emotional revenge that she feels by being rejected. She wants that same pain to come out of them.
Yeah. So Lola then looks at her father and announces that she's ready to draw on him now. And before we dive into that craziness, we jump over to Jamie and Mia, who are still hanging out in the car, but it appears that Mia is finally warming up to her date a little bit. And definitely a little jealous of Jamie. Mia's very attractive. She's a bit of a bummer she's kind of bringing the vibe down a little bit, but, I can work with that. But man, dude, the Australian accent, love it. Love Australian accents. A goth girl with an Australian accent that loves punk rock, like, I'd be in heaven.
Yeah,
Lucky
that's
bastard.
like, fuck going into prom. Let's
Just hang out here.
let's
Yeah.
get blazed and party in the parking lot.
So after that, we then cut back to art class with Lola, where we see that they have stripped Brent's shirt off in order for Lola to carve a big ass heart and her initials into his flesh with a fucking fork. You couldn't even use a
Eesh.
knife.
With a fucking fork?
Yeah,
So that's, like, started, like, a tradition when she was a kid. She
yeah.
was too young to
Hold the
use
knife.
a knife.
Yeah. This leaves him drenched in sweat, badly bleeding, and in unbelievable pain. And if you remember the scrapbook scene, this is something that she has done to every victim they have killed since she was, I don't know, fucking 9 years old.
Yeah, now imagine this same scene with a 9-year-old child.
Yeah, that's not. I love.
That's a hard prequel to make,
Yeah,
but
I don't know if
man,
that's something I'd wanna watch.
it could if done right, it could be a very, very scary movie, but good God, that is quite the visual.
Yeah. So we then see Lola and Eric standing there admiring her work, with her father telling her that she gets better every time. When she then orders him to start throwing salt on him, which of course sends him thrashing all over from pain, which is exactly what these two want to see. But this isn't enough for her, as we then see her grab the salt from her father, removing the lid and dumping half the bottle on him, sending pain so bad through his body he starts to almost hallucinate, as Eric and Lola laugh in his face and say, "We can't hear you," over and over again.
I
Jeez.
think this kinda goes back to when her dad was hammering the knives into his foot, and he refused to give her the reaction that she wanted. So instead of, like, the normal just tossing salt in the wound, she took the whole lid off and threw it on him because he didn't give her that reaction that she wanted in that moment.
Yeah, and I think another part of it too, because it hasn't really been revealed yet, is I think this is the first one of these, kidnap torture things where Eric is kind of letting Lola take more of the lead, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because we do find out she's actually going to be doing something for the first time, but there's a lot of Eric really watching what Lola does as she goes through the motions, almost like he's like, kind of like, how's she going to do? And I think that, not just the event that happens here down the road, I think a lot of this is her first time taking the lead.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the dad obviously did this prior because we do learn about some other victims, but I think this was probably something that the dad did. Because thinking about now, like, you see at one point, like, he starts to get frustrated with her. So it seems like something he's done a lot more than the 4 times in the scrapbook.
Yeah, and I think the connection, it's never mentioned in the movie at all, but I think the connection is a lot of, at least, here in our country, a lot of teenagers lose their virginity on prom night. That's a big thing, or at least a big kind of pop culture thing. It's in a lot of movies. This is kind of her first time.
Yeah.
And I think the whole prom thing and all that, I think that's kind of, she's not going to lose her virginity like a lot of her peers. She's losing her torture murder virginity, kind of.
I can tell you it won't be her getting drilled for the first time.
So back at Brent's house, while Paul talks to Carla, we see Holly wander into his room, where she picks up that card that we saw him writing in earlier. And while she looks at it, we see that it has a picture of Humpty Dumpty on the front, and inside he has written, "Thanks for doing what all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't. I love you." Meaning she single-handedly was responsible for slowly putting him back together after this accident, which I'm sure is like a dagger through her heart. And this, obviously, he did the card because he couldn't say it to her earlier.
Yeah, this is also, not only crushing for her, but even more proof that he had every plan in the world to be at that prom with her.
Yeah. So we then jump back over to Jamie and Mia, where Jamie finally convinces his date to head into the dance, but it quickly becomes apparent that Mia is very fucked up when we see her trying to get out of the car. I've definitely seen some people do that in my day.
Yep.
So once inside, they stumble over to the dance floor where Mia wraps her arms around Jamie as they begin to slow dance. And at first, everything seems to be going okay. That is until Mia pulls one of her arms back, reaches down, and begins to jack off Jamie over top of his pants in the middle of the dance floor. This pretty quickly gets everyone around them's attention as they all start to stare oddly at them while Jamie nervously smiles, not knowing what the hell to do.
I would've did the same thing he did.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like, yep, that'd be my reaction as well. But this doesn't last too long when Mia then verbally assaults a couple looking at them when suddenly a teacher walks over and tells them that if they want to do stuff like that, they need to leave, prompting the two to head back out to Jamie's car. Back over at the Temu/Wish.com prom, we see that it has just been announced that Lola is this year's prom queen, which is apparently a shock to her because the competition was so fierce this year.
Yeah.
I guess it's between her and an old lady who can't talk and has a big asshole in her head. So, as she celebrates, the camera pans over to reveal a bloody and damn near dead Brent has been named this year's prom king. They both then don paper crowns to prepare for their dance together, which is going to be kind of difficult considering Brent is still nailed to the floor. I also noticed here that lame-ass Eric also crowned himself. What a fucking loser. Doesn't he know, like, there can't be two kings? There can only be one. Take your fucking crown off, you loser. He's so fucking lame. He's just a lame dude, man, and he's just lame. That's all I just dislike him. He's just not cool.
He's a pretty awful character.
So now that we got our prom queen and two kings, it's time for the dance, where Lola brings out her CD player and plays her favorite song, which is a very somber song by Australian singer-songwriter Casey Chambers called Not Pretty Enough. It originally charted at #1 in Australia and #4 in New Zealand. It is very catchy. Feel free to look it up. It is indeed on YouTube. It actually came out in sometime in 2002, and the music video has about 800 and something comments, with about 90% of them being about this movie or Lola Stone, which I found hilarious. And I looked it up to see what Casey Chambers thought about her pop country love song essentially being hijacked by a demented horror movie. But unfortunately, she has never publicly commented on the film.
She's probably made a lot of money off of it.
Maybe.
She gets royalties.
I like the fact that 90% of all the comments on the official music video is about this movie. But yeah, it's basically a song about a girl who is madly in love with a boy, but he doesn't really show her like much interest, leading her to question if she's just not attractive enough or not funny enough, or maybe she's just too opinionated. But she's willing to change her personality if it makes him happy. And I highly, highly doubt that Lola would change her murderous ways for a boy. But maybe for one special boy. Because as we are about to learn, there is indeed a man for her out there that is much closer than she realizes.
Not closer in age.
Nope. So we then cut to Lola and Brent dancing, with Brent basically just swaying back and forth considering his foot is still nailed to the ground. And as Lola is talking to him about this stupid fucking song and about how her prince is going to just show up one day, we see lame-ass Eric standing on a stepladder behind them, sprinkling glitter from above. But this leads to some bad news for our boy Brent, as Lola tells him that he isn't her prince, and he is just another frog, as she then just can't resist causing him more pain, stomping on his foot, causing him to yell out. And then she does something that nobody saw coming. She walks around Brent and asks her dad to dance with her, which leaves Eric in shock. I hate this part. It's just so fucking creepy and uncomfortable. Honestly, the first time I watched it, I was like, there's no fucking way that this is going to go in the direction that it seems like it's going to go. And then
Well,
it did.
I think that's part of what makes this movie so amazing
Yeah.
is its ability to make you uncomfortable and build such a fucking dreadful atmosphere. I've said it a million times on the show, but when a movie makes you feel real feelings in real life, it is doing its job like
Yeah.
a filmmaker has done its job when you have legitimate real life feelings while watching their film. And this movie highlights that 100%.
Yeah, this is a scene that I hate. It makes me feel really uncomfortable, really grossed out, but it is a huge piece of why I like the movie overall. So anyway, Lola leads her father, yes, her father, to the dance floor, allowing him to wrap his arm around her waist as they both stare into each other's eyes like fucking love at first sight or some shit. And thankfully, this distracts the two psychopaths just enough to allow Brent to get his necklace out of his back pocket, which he then starts to use to cut through the rope on his hands. Lola then tells her dad that he is the prince she has been waiting on all these years, and that's why none of those other boys worked out. It turns out the man of her dreams was right in front of her all this time, and she just now realizes this. Eric looks like he's gonna come in his pants as his daughter closes her eyes and leans in for their first kiss. Ugh. Ugh. I remember when she's leaning in and like he's nervously like about to do it, and I remember saying out loud, "No fucking way." Like, no fucking way are they about to kiss.
Well, I think this goes back to Bright Eyes and why she is lobotomized. Clearly, Eric, keeps her in this state to keep her alive, but Lola, we learn later on, does not want her alive at all.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's the attention from
yeah,
her father.
yeah.
Yeah, she wants all of Eric's attention, and you do see in a couple scenes early on, like, Lola actually tries to get, like, Eric to, "Hey, which one of us is prettier?" Despite the fact that Bright Eyes can't even fucking say anything, he's, like, nervous. He doesn't wanna make either one of them upset.
Well, I think that he feels bad for his wife, regardless if you want to say this is remarried or her actual mom. You don't know at this point in the movie, but, I don't think it's not wanting to make her upset. I think it's not wanting to make his daughter upset, and he legitimately feels bad. She is at one point like shoving the chicken in Bright Eyes' mouth, and he's like hesitant and almost gonna jump in, but he is scared to death of his daughter.
Yeah, and what was weird, and this kind of added to my original theory. This is very similar to a lot of times where you see a guy, he marries another woman, and he's kind of trapped between his new wife and his daughter, because he doesn't really wanna put one over the other because he's in the middle, like, he loves them both, but obviously a lot of times step parents and kids don't get along, and it kind of puts, maybe the dad or the mom or whatever it is in the middle, and there's that constant almost tug of war, and that's what I originally thought, but it's so fucking twisted that they're all, this is her, biological mom and her biological dad. And it's just twisted as fuck, like, she's jealous of her mother, which it actually I don't even think it's been revealed yet that this is her mother, but
No, no, it
yeah.
has not.
But, yeah, like, the fact that she's in love with her dad, hates Bright Eyes because of the attention he has to give Bright Eyes, he has to keep her alive.
Well, he doesn't have to. I think that goes to show that he does love,
Yeah,
he does love Bright Eyes. He obviously comes up with the idea of lobotomizing her just to keep her alive because he doesn't want to kill her. And he does this obviously to make his daughter happy. And, he is very much he goes way too far, but you can tell at other parts of the movie, he is very scared at
Yeah.
upsetting his daughter under any circumstance. So, even if he wasn't into this whole, about the kiss thing, I think he would be too scared to upset his daughter and what she might do.
Yeah. He created an absolute monster, for sure. So thankfully, right before their lips touch, Brent falls down in his seat, which immediately catches their attention. Honestly, if all this shit that's about to go down didn't go down, I think they would have 100% fucked that night. I don't think Eric would have lasted long. It seemed like he's had this shit in his head for some time,
I don't
but
know, man. I don't know if Eric has. I think with the mom being kept alive and you see him go to walk out the room when she goes to undress, this is very much Eric is scared to fucking death. And, what happens if he does make her upset? She has all this knowledge that would end his life. She very much would easily try to end his life or end her own life. He has put himself in a situation where he cannot upset her.
well, whether that's true or not, I think she was planning to get down.
Yeah,
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 and
I
his choice or not,
I
like,
think this is very much driven by her,
because she's very
and
horny.
yeah, so this is very much driven by her, and I think that he kinda is just will do whatever obviously, will do whatever it takes to keep his daughter happy, but I think on this side of it, it's almost out of fear.
So thankfully, we get a little break from all that shit as we then cut over to Paul making sure Holly gets home safe, where he then tells her that search and rescue will be arriving in the morning to help look for Brent. And if she thinks of anything that might shed some light on this situation, to immediately call him. Back over at the Stone residence, Lola and Eric decide to postpone their special bonding time in order to feed their secret pets in the basement. They then grab some roadkill, pull back a rug in the living room, revealing two large metal doors, which they then open, tossing the dead animal down into the hole, which is where we then start hearing a bunch of screeching and almost animalistic like noises, making Brent and us wonder just what the hell is down there.
Yeah. Yeah, big, like, what the fuck? This movie just took a twist,
This movie has a lot of little
and
twists.
we get, like, four guys since our childhood that, they have murdered, and there is more than 4 people down here. So, I think that's proof that her dad was a serial killer prior. We don't know how many of these people down here are those boys in the scrapbook, or if any of them are, but obviously these are people he has lobotomized and slowly feeds to just keep alive enough to feed their victims to.
Yeah, actually, I do want to talk about that kind of a little more in detail a little bit later on when we actually kind of get some more info on the people down there, but there is a bit of a debate about what you just said. But yeah, that's interrupted when we cut back to Jamie and Mia, who quickly start hooking up in the back seat of the car, as we then see Eric walk outside towards them. Jamie and Mia then get interrupted by a knock on the window, which of course freaks them out. But despite what the tricky editing made us believe was happening, it's actually not Eric knocking on the window. It's their teacher again, telling them to get off of school property. And the first time I seen this, I was like, oh no, like these fucking weirdos are gonna get them too. But then I was also like, why would they drive way out there and park right next to the only
Well,
house?
my thought was one of them is the sibling of her.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's what I 100% thought. Like, this goth girl is her sister, and it's why she's so different and so, like, clearly hurt by something. Or this goofy guy is her brother, which I thought less of that. I thought for sure it was more so the girl. And then also with the idea of, I know we'll come back to it with the idea of the people in the basement. That whole thing just brought up, like, did Lola have siblings?
Yeah.
Is that who is in the basement? Is that part of the debate that you're about to tell me about?
No, no, but it does concern the basement people, but
What if she had some older siblings that she
maybe.
slowly got tired of getting her dad's attention?
Yeah, maybe. No, what I originally thought was Eric was gonna kidnap, like, Jamie and, like, torture Jamie, like, kill Jamie in front of Brent, just making this worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little tricky editing there. So after grabbing his tools from the car, he opens up the metal box, grabbing an electric drill as Lola informs Brent that he's gonna be her first drilling. And despite him having no idea what she means, he knows it's definitely not good. Eric then hands her the drill and tells her the trick is to not go too far, just enough to break the skull, meaning they are going to pull a Jeffrey Dahmer and drill into Brent's brain, where they will then pour scalding hot water into the hole, fucking up his brain, turning him into a zombie of sorts, which explains what happened to Bright Eyes and why she's basically catatonic. And the whole time this is going on, we see Brent steady cutting at that rope with his necklace. If you don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer did this to a few of his victims. He was basically trying to pour acid into their brains because he had a serious abandonment issue and didn't want them to leave. Also, he was obsessed with the idea of having a sex slave. But if I remember right, he never actually got this to work. I do put a fact about this in the end that kind of clarifies a little more because I can't really remember. I feel like I remember it never worked.
Yeah, it did not. I think he tried it on 4 different victims, and with those victims, he actually didn't intend on killing any of them. He was trying to
Turn
essentially,
them into bright eyes, yeah.
yeah, give them brain damage to the point where they had very little thoughts of their own.
So once Lola is ready, Eric comes up behind Brent, placing him in a chokehold in order to keep him still. Lola then pulls the trigger, pointing the drill at his head as he slowly walks towards him so she can enjoy every second of his terrified reaction. But she kind of blows it the first time around as the drill just kind of slips off his head and like off to the right. I do like that they put this in there because it's supposed to be her first time, and I think it was, you know, I think it's harder than it looks to probably drill into somebody's skull.
I think it also builds,
Yeah.
anticipation.
So anyway, Eric gets kind of annoyed with her for this blunder, telling her she has to push harder and to make sure that she uses two hands. She then changes her position, focuses on what she needs to do, and then presses the bit into his forehead, pulling the trigger. And within seconds, we hear the sound of bone crunching and grinding as Brent tries to scream, and the look on Lola's face is a mix between focus and pure excitement. Now, we don't get to see this from the front, but we do see it from the back. And I gotta say, I love the addition of the smoke coming off the drill bit. Very nice touch. Felt very realistic. Also, the sound. I've never personally drilled through a person's skull before, but I imagine it sounds something similar to this, or at least as gross as this.
Yeah, I think it would sound too good.
But yeah, after a minute of this, Eric yells stop, not wanting her to drill too far, hitting Brent's brain and ending all the fun too early. Eric then lets him go, runs over to Lola as they then both stare with eager excitement as Brent begins to drool uncontrollably, acting very dazed and confused while picturing his parents and Holly. Eric then walks over to get the boiling hot water. Lola appears almost sexually turned on by what she just did to this living, breathing, innocent person.
She got to drill somebody for the first time.
Yeah, dude, people like this that take pleasure in, causing other people, like pain on this level, there's no prison on earth that could salvage a person this mentally ill and sadistic. Like, what do you do when you arrest somebody like this? At the minimum, you hope they're, locked away forever, but then you put like guards and prisoners at risk being around this person all the time. I hate to say it, but this person is fucking ruined. This is a defective human being.
Yeah, I mean, this is spoke about it when the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary came out, and that got really big. Once somebody has like that many, like the perfect storm of mental illness, there is no fixing that.
No, you
Like
either
he himself tried to do other things to stop his urges because he knew that they were wrong, and he couldn't control it at all. Like once a brain is this broken, there is no fixing it.
no, you either pay for them to be in prison for life or you kill them and be done with it. But there's no fixing this person. So she then leans in real close and tells him that they are basically going to pour hot water into his skull, boiling his brain, which will then turn him into one of those zombie sounding things down in the basement. But little do they know, Brent has one more trick up his sleeve. So Lola then attempts to pour the water in, but ends up burning her dad's arm, leading him to grab the drill from her and attempt to make the hole bigger. Guess they've never heard of a funnel. This would
Uh,
be a lot easier if you just used a funnel. So this gives Brent just enough time to finally cut through the rope, slashing Eric's bitch ass all the way up from his neck to his nose, leading him to fall on the ground totally stunned at what just happened. Brent quickly grabs the drill, using it to cut the other rope on his legs while Lola stands back, leaving her dad to take care of the problem. Now, Eric does manage to get a hold of the hammer, but hesitates going after Brent because he is so shocked about suddenly having this painful cut across his face, which has basically begun pouring blood all over him. And Brent then manages to rip the knife out of his foot, finally getting free and gaining the upper hand because now he has a drill and a knife. And right as Brent stands up, preparing for an attack, Eric sorts himself out, filling with rage, as he then grits his teeth and charges the teenage boy. But this is quickly shut down as Brent throws the drill, hitting Eric right in the fucking face, stunning him for a moment, when then out of nowhere, Brent hears a deep voice from above that says,
Finish him!
as he quickly moves in for the kill, stabbing Eric in the neck over and over again until he finally gets attacked from Lola from behind. I fucking love Eric's death. It's
yeah.
so fucking vicious and badass. So Eric just stands there stumbling around as his blood gushes out of his body. His throat fills with hot, thick hemoglobin, making it near impossible for him to breathe. He realizes that the knife is still sticking out of his neck and he is on the verge of death. His reaction here is great. He acts like he's fucking melting.
In shock.
Yeah. So I love his death because for somebody that was so fucking horrible to other people and inflicted so much pain, he's acting like a little bitch about it.
Yeah. I love the finale of his death even more so.
Yep. So across the room, we see Brent and Lola fighting it out, with Brent managing to throw her on the floor, punching her in the face multiple times until her nose explodes with blood, knocking her unconscious. I honestly wish he'd have just literally beat her to her fucking face in. Like, you remember the Wishmaster when the security guard got the mace in the face from the statue? That's
Yeah.
what I wish he would have did. But no, once he knocks her out, he turns his attention back to Eric, who barely has the energy left to stand, pushing him into the dark basement where he slams onto the ground when suddenly we see these three mostly naked, very dirty, and almost animalistic men rush over to the body and begin eating his face and throat. Very people under the stairs here. Also, it's important to note this basement has no stairs or ladder, so once you were down there, there's no getting out. Which, by the way, he missed a perfect opportunity to Sparta kick that motherfucker into the abyss.
Yeah.
He just pushes him, but I just kicked the fuck out of him. Watch him go flying.
Yeah. I think one of these things down there may have been a female, too. I didn't go back and pause. I meant to, on my last watch, go back and pause that part. But if one of them were a female, that also leads to the possibility that maybe Lola had a sister who she was very jealous of.
Well,
And instead of killing them, they lobotomized her and kept her in the basement.
I
There is obviously a difference between the people that they lobotomize and the people that they feed to the people that are lobotomized.
I paused this because I was writing the whole scene. I paused it many times. None of them are females. They're all males. They all have the heart carved in their chest with the initials. But, and I'll kind of bring it up a little later, I do not believe that they were all teenagers, which it'll come into what the debate I was telling you about later. But yeah, I looked at them. I didn't notice. Two of them have dreads, which I don't know, maybe kind of the longer hair made them kind of look more like a female. But
Yeah.
they're all, at least the three of them that you can see are males. But interesting idea. Now, Brent is shocked by the sight of these creature, former human things, leading him to stand there in shock as they begin to tear Eric apart. When suddenly Lola grabs his legs, pushing him into the hole as well. And once he hits the floor, Lola's anger and heartbreak gets the best of her as she watches her father be mutilated by their own creations, leading her to start throwing stuff at them, essentially giving Brent a flashlight and a hammer, which he then uses to fight off these three lobotomized men. So I do have a couple fun facts about this particular scene. The power drill scene took an enormous psychological toll on McLeavy, who plays Lola. And according to the director, at the end of the final take of the drilling scene, all the blood had drained from her face. She had become mentally and emotionally exhausted, where she then just had 3 short words for the director: too much drilling. So, also, when Brent throws the drill at Eric Stone's head, that was a prop drill. I believe it was a kind of softer rubber, but Xavier Samuel, who plays Brent, threw it so hard it actually broke through the prosthetics on John Burpton's face and cut him for real. So his reaction is genuine, and possibly some of the blood too. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, he fucked him up, hitting him in the face with that thing. All right, so once Lola calms down a bit, she sits there in silence with only the sounds of her father's flesh being ripped and chewed, filling her ears. When suddenly she gets up and slams the door shut, leaving Brent down there with the cannibalistic creatures in the dark. Now, I have seen people talk about how, and this is actually like one of the facts on IMDb as well. Technically, Lola and Eric are not serial killers because they didn't kill those boys. But I don't personally think that those are the same boys down in the basement that are also in the picture. Maybe one or two of them, but I don't think all of them are, because they look like full-grown 20-something-year-old men. One of them actually has a receding hairline, so I think he's much older. So I wonder if they kept, some victims down in the basement and they killed other ones. I mean, it could be them, but I would like to think they didn't just kidnap 4 boys and torture them and keep them down there. Like,
Well, there also is the huge plot hole that if it was in fact all the boys from the book, like they were gonna feed Brent to them. Like it was clearly feeding time. Like these creatures down there knew that it was time to eat. So it very much makes it obvious that this is how they do away with their victims' bodies. They killed them and they are eaten down there.
well, they
As
were going to
soon as
lobotomize him, though.
as soon as the dad fell down there, they immediately started eating him alive.
Yeah, and it makes you
So
wonder, too, like, if they were trying to keep people down there, how do they keep the 3 from eating the new ones? And there is a
That's
lot of bones down
Well,
there.
yeah, and you see as soon as the dad falls, they immediately start eating. They'd already called them, like, did the whole, like, it's feeding time thing when they first opened up the door. So, which victims are victims that were in the scrapbook, and, how did they decide who lived and who stayed lobotomized down there? That's why I wondered if there was siblings. Was there a family member who did something to her when she was young? Maybe that's why she has so much, like, sexual thoughts and stuff, even being a very young child. Like, there's a lot more to this story that is not brought out in the actual plot.
Yeah,
There's too many bodies here and not enough victims that we know about.
well, yeah, because this is the debate, a lot of people have with this is whether or not these are the only 3 victims or the 3 that she talks about in the scrapbook, but I don't personally think it is. I think there's more. And if you pay attention to the scene where she goes to the scrapbook, she actually will sometimes flip 3, 4, 5 pages before and I think she was just hitting on the highlights maybe, or maybe the ones she was just a part of. I do think there's more victims than just these 3. I do think they're like serial killers, but a lot of people don't believe that they've actually killed anybody. They just lobotomize them, but we don't technically have an answer. So after all that crazy shit, we then cut back to Jamie, who's trying to help a very intoxicated Mia back into her house when suddenly they get busted by Paul. But to Jamie's surprise, Paul doesn't freak out or really say anything. He just seems relieved that his daughter made it back home safe and that Jamie had the decency to help her inside. I think another thing that helps here is the fact that Jamie isn't really wasted, and Paul knows his daughter's using substances to cope with some serious emotions, which we will reveal here in a minute. But I don't necessarily think Paul is upset at Jamie.
No, no, I don't either. I'd love this comment too.
Must have
Much
danced her feet off. This is my favorite line in the whole
Yeah.
movie. So down in the basement, all 3 cannibals try to attack Brent, forcing him to beat them to death with the hammer, which leads him to his next problem. How the hell is he going to get out of this basement and escape this house? And after looking around at the walls and ceiling with the flashlight, he realizes that this isn't an ordinary basement. It is a prison purposely built to keep people trapped with no way to get out. Back upstairs, Lola has fallen almost into a trance, totally blinded by rage and sadness, leading her to head into the master bedroom where she then smothers Bright Eyes to death, where it is then revealed who Bright Eyes actually is: Eric's wife and Lola's own mother. That's fucking dark. Dude
Well,
lobotomized his own wife and mother of their child.
it's very telling that the very first thing she does after her dad is killed is she goes in there and kills her mom.
Yeah.
Like, she has been wanting her dead for a long time. Her being lobotomized was just Eric's way of keeping her alive and making Lola happy enough without him having to kill her.
So, since we're bringing all the secrets to the surface, we then jump back to Paul's house where he goes to check on his daughter Mia, who is now laying in her bed crying, asking why they can't find her missing twin brother. And his name is Timmy Valentine, the boy who escaped Lola in Eric's house and caused Brent to wreck the car, killing Dan, which means the article in Lola's scrapbook was talking about Sergeant Paul Valentine, bringing everything full circle.
Which means Brent would have 100% known Justin Valentine,
Yes,
being that he knows
their sister,
his
sister, yeah.
twin sister. They would
Yep.
have been the same age.
And it is at this point, while laying awake in bed, Holly remembers something really important that might help find Brent. She then sits up, calls Paul, and tells him that Lola Stone asked Brent to the dance earlier that day, and he turned her down, which could have something to do with his disappearance. Paul then jumps up, gets in his police car, and immediately drives over to the Stone residence to look around and ask some questions. We then cut to him pulling up in the front yard. As he approaches the house, he notices the disco ball lights shining through the windows, which is odd considering there appears to be no party going on. He then looks through the glass where he quickly spots everything in disarray with a huge puddle of blood on the floor, prompting him to pull out his gun and quietly head inside. Why do movie cops always do this? Call for backup, man, before you fucking do anything. This is like
Well,
horror movie cop 101.
it makes you think the way Holly reacts when she remembers that Lola was the one that asked him to the dance. That wouldn't normally ring any bells. It makes you think, did everybody know that Lola had a thing for Justin Valentine? And when he went missing, was that one of the things that
Maybe.
people thought about? So could you see how fast he drives his cop car out
Yeah.
there? So he may have already looked into them when his son went missing because everybody already knew that this girl had an obsession with his son. And
That's a good point.
yeah, I definitely think that the people at school knew that there was something up with Lola and her obsession. And then when he disappeared, she was all of a sudden probably fine.
Well, if you notice too in the scrapbook, I think for Timmy's picture, she writes, liar, 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 you tell lies. So obviously, Timmy Valentine was saying shit about Lola at school.
Yeah.
So anyway, he heads into the house to look around when suddenly he hears Brent screeching and making noises in the basement. This leads him to open the big metal doors where he's shocked by the sight of the missing teenage boy when suddenly Lola comes up behind him, burying a meat cleaver into his head, instantly killing him, as we then see his body fall down into the basement, landing right in front of Brent. I seen this fucking coming from like the middle of the movie.
Rest in peace, Mia. Because
Yeah, that's
now
actually
her brother and dad
one
has
of the
been murdered.
one of the first things I thought about is her life's about to get a whole lot worse, especially how she kind of treated her dad.
Yep.
Yeah. So Brent thinks fast on his feet, grabbing Paul's gun, firing rounds at Lola, but missing, causing the disco ball to explode. A now fully deranged Lola, with nothing left to lose, then grabs a large butcher knife in Brent's necklace, announcing loud enough for him to hear that she is leaving and heading to his house in order to kill his mother Carla and girlfriend Holly as payback for what he did to Eric. But little does she know, she isn't going to have to wait long to find Holly because, as we are about to see, Brent's girlfriend isn't satisfied with just sitting and waiting to hear back from Paul, as she then hops into her car and drives towards Lola's house to see for herself. Now, Brent just can't sit by and let Lola's crazy ass kill the only two people left in his life that he cares about, forcing him to figure out a way to escape this dungeon. And he does, by stacking all of the dead bodies on top of each other, giving him just enough height to reach the edge of the floor and pull himself up, where he then jumps into Paul's police car and speeds off towards his house in order to stop Lola.
This goes back to his rock climbing in the beginning when I guess people online were speculating, was he contemplating suicide? This is obviously something that he did on a regular basis, but this gave him the strength to pull himself out of this hole.
Yeah. So we then cut to mid-morning where we see a bloody Lola still wearing her pink dress, walking down the middle of the road, holding a butcher knife in one hand and her scrapbook in the other, when suddenly she notices Holly's car speeding towards her, prompting her to hide on the side of the road in order to ambush the girl when she drives by. We then cut to inside Holly's car where we start to see the anxiety building the closer she gets to the stone house, when suddenly something slams into her windshield, causing her to immediately slam on the brakes. And as she sits still for a moment, trying to calm down and piece together what the hell just happened, she starts to see pages from Lola's scrapbook slowly flutter down from above. But before she can understand what she's looking at, a crazed, blood-soaked Lola swings open her passenger side door and prepares to attack, when Holly then notices Brent's necklace hanging from Lola's neck, leading her to put all the pieces together, realizing that she must have killed her boyfriend. Lola then jumps into the car like a goddamn spider monkey, dead set on burying the large knife into Holly's face or chest. But there's one thing Lola didn't think about when coming up with this plan. She doesn't have her precious daddy to do all the hard work. And as she's about to learn, attacking someone who sees you coming is a whole lot harder than stabbing someone tied to a chair. And within seconds, this becomes a full-on girl fight as both girls grab an arm and a handful of hair. This is extremely realistic and honestly kind of funny. It's almost a little anticlimactic because for like 2 minutes straight, they're just pulling each other's hair and, pushing back and forth in the in the front seat.
I
And
don't know, I thought Lola, like, the way the psycho aggression that she attacks Holly with was that such good acting, and this is much more realistic in a movie of how somebody attacking you with you seeing it coming would go. It would lead to an actual fight
I
and a
agree.
struggle.
It is very realistic, but the thing the thing that I find the most realistic and stuff about it is both girls grab a chunk of their hair. It's like if you watch a bunch of YouTube fighting videos and the girl ones pop up, it's kind of the same thing. So anyway, realizing this isn't going anywhere and Lola's got the advantage because she's holding a weapon, Holly reaches behind herself and opens her door, which causes the two girls to kind of roll out of the car. And as soon as she gets a chance, Lola swings the knife downward, missing Holly completely and jamming the blade into the asphalt, giving Holly a golden opportunity to strike back as she quickly kicks Lola right in her stupid fucking face. This stuns Lola for a moment, giving Holly a chance to get up and run away, but Lola's not going down that easily, immediately jumping up and chasing after her, still holding the knife. Now, Holly must be a fucking track star because she ends up putting some major distance between herself and Lola. I'm talking about like a solid 60 feet or more. So we then cut to Brent, who's pushing the pedal to the metal, when he suddenly comes over a hill and almost hits Holly. This forces him to swerve out of the way, very similar to when he almost hit Timmy in the beginning of the film, but this time he manages to keep the car under control and not slam into a tree. Instead, he slams into a Lola.
On accident.
Yes.
May I add that?
Yeah, sending her flying over the car and into the hard asphalt below. Holly then runs over to get into the cop car when she is suddenly shocked to see a bloody, beaten Brent. But after a few seconds of disbelief, they have a nice reunion. While this is going on, we cut back to a very badly injured Lola who can no longer walk and has a compound fracture in her wrist, still gripping the knife and full of hate as she slowly crawls towards the back of the car. Brent and Holly notice this, with Brent then putting the car in reverse and backing over her, causing her head to splat against the bumper, killing her instantly. Thank God. And I also love that the fact that the car goes so slow in reverse and she can see it coming from like a mile away, but she can't move fast enough to avoid it. And it forces her to just stare at that bumper knowing that this is her last few seconds of life and it's Brent and Holly that's killing her. This is great.
I don't know, I thought it was like, she has so much hate in her. Like, she's still crawling after the car even after getting hit going that fast. Like, she wasn't trying to move out of the way. Like, she's 100% in it.
I think
Like, she is gonna crawl through that car and kill them. That's what she thinks in her head. Like, I'm going to get hit so hard, I'm gonna go through the trunk and I'm gonna murder them in this car.
yeah.
Like, she has such rage inside of her. I thought for a minute that Brent was gonna drive this car up over this hill and run over
I did
and
too.
kill his
I
girlfriend,
did too.
and it was gonna be a dark ending movie. And I was like, "Holy shit. That would have been awful, but such a great dark ending." I'm glad it didn't go that way, but I'm not gonna say if it did go that way that I wouldn't have been like, "Bravo" on the dark ending.
Well, normally I really like dark endings, but I would rather the ending we got because it's like
I'm
the
sure he
dude's already been through enough.
I'm sure he would have gotten out and, like, beaten Lola to death with his bare hands at that point, but damn, that would have been some dark shit.
So after that, we then cut to Brent and Holly pulling up in front of his house where Carla immediately clocks the cop car, running out to see what the news is when she is happily surprised at the sight of her son giving him and Holly a big hug as they exit the vehicle. And that is the end of The Loved Ones. What a wild fucking torture movie.
That was a wild one.
Yeah. So, a couple quick facts. So, Lola is partially based on Jeffrey Dahmer, which makes sense after seeing her preferred torture methods, which is, of course, lobotomizing her victim by drilling a hole in their forehead and pouring boiling water into it. The real Jeffrey Dahmer also used a power drill to try and lobotomize his victims, where afterwards he would pour acid into the hole. He did this because he wanted to turn them into obedient zombies. But apparently, just like everything else in his life, he wasn't good at that either because nobody ever survived his shitty lobotomies. He killed them every time.
Yeah, I think he kept decreasing the amount of acid that he would use to try to keep them alive, but yeah, I guess he just didn't get enough tries. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Constable Paul's death pays homage to the character Sheriff Buster in the film Misery. Both Paul and Buster were law enforcement officers tasked with searching for the protagonist. Both find who they're looking for in the home's basement, and both are immediately killed by the female antagonist before they call for backup. Now,
Hmm. Interesting similarities there.
yeah, so the main inspirations for this film is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, Carrie, 1976, Misery, 1990, and Audition, 1999, with Lola's pink dress in particular paying homage to Carrie's pink prom dress.
Damn, we've covered all but one of
All
those
but one.
movies.
Yep. All right, so ratings and kill count. I got a total of 9 kills. We have Timmy Valentine, who was tortured by Lola, and I assume he eventually bleeds to death or something. He's never found. Dan Mitchell dies in a car wreck after hitting a tree. Eric Stone had his face sliced open, steak knife to the throat, and gets ripped apart by cannibals. Bright Eyes was smothered to death by Lola. The Basement Guy 1 was killed by Brent with a hammer. Basement Guy 2, killed with the hammer. Basement Guy 3, hammer. Paul got the meat cleaver to the head by Lola. And finally, Lola Stone was run over by a car twice. She got the old double tap. All right, so I'm up on favorite kill, and I went with Eric. It was so satisfying seeing how big of a pussy he turned into after years of inflicting pain and suffering on others, especially after they made fun of that one kid about pissing his pants. Also, he died before he got to fuck his own daughter, so, it's a little more satisfaction brought to the table. And my second is going to be Lola. It's also satisfying, especially considering how slow the car was moving. She couldn't move. She couldn't get out of the way, or she didn't want to get out of the way. Whatever. It flashed across her fucking mind that this was it.
Yep, so I went with the Basement Guy number 2.
Would you watch like the extended version?
No, Lola was my favorite. Like I said before, she didn't even try to get out of the way. She's just brewing on full-on hate at this point, and they show such a long shot of her face as the car is backing up towards her. You actually can see the reflection in her eyes for a split second as the car is about to hit her. And then we get that quick flashback scene of her head being smashed into the back bumper of this thing. Yeah, she was awful. Love to see her go. And then a close second is her dad, who I do not think wanted to necessarily fuck his daughter as much as I think you do. I think it more so he loved his wife, but his daughter was a fucking psychopath, and he did everything he could. I do think he was a serial killer prior to that, though. I think that's why we have a bunch of extra bodies in here that aren't accounted for, and I think Lola started to go down that path, and he being a sick fuck too kinda inched his way into it, but yeah, him getting eaten by the creatures he created, you can't get much better than that.
All right, so time for the rating. I gave this movie a 3.8. This is a good movie. good acting for the most part. Robin McLeavy did a fantastic job. A 10 out of 10 performance, in my opinion. Also, big props to Xavier Samuel, who played Brent. Fun fact, he actually didn't have any lines after the 27-minute mark, meaning the rest of his performance was all physical, which is very difficult, as we know. I love how unique the story was. It's kind of a high school crush thing gone terribly wrong, and in many ways, like I was saying, in many ways, like a wide scope, it's a little predictable. I seen Paul's death coming a mile away, but it has a lot of good twists and connections that really make the story interesting. And I think that's what makes it a really good story is all the little details and twists sprinkled out, a story like this. My only gripe is the fact that we didn't get many, like, effects. A lot of stuff shot from behind, or they do a quick cutaway right before. I would have definitely rated the film higher if we could have seen the forehead drilling scene and the meat cleaver to the head scene. We didn't even get to see Brent kill all the basement dudes with the hammer, which, considering how dark it was in there, I would assume it would have been really easy to film. But other than that, I thought it was a really good movie. I just would have liked to seen the effects more than necessarily a kind of camera trick. But another thing is it has a really good soundtrack. It has a very kind of punk soundtrack. I really like that. And then, of course, like, I love the indie feel it has, which is like a lot of these really good Australian horror films all have this. I kind of give a lot of credit to the government for kind of helping fund these things and get them distributed. I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, 3.8 for me, man. Great film.
So I gave this a 4.3. Thought this movie was fantastic. This movie's ability to build dread and anticipation is fantastic. The uncomfortable relationship between Lola and her dad is so fucking unnerving and creepy. I thought the character building is fantastic, especially in showing the dreadful remorse that Brent lives with and the psycho killer spoiling of Lola. I thought the effects were done great. I do agree. I wish that we would have gotten to see more. When I wrote this, I didn't know because, I don't have a release of this, so I didn't get to do a whole lot of background of how much that they had
Yeah,
to cut.
it was hard getting anything on this movie.
Yeah, how much they had to cut. So I assume that they did have to cut some stuff in order to get the ratings that they needed to. But what we did get was good, and they still did really good with the Foley artist and, you know, making you feel the brutality of the effects that we don't quite get to see as much of. I thought the cinematography was done great. Like, we get a shot, especially at the end, of Lola walking down the street when she sees that car coming and she hides out in the woods. Like, when she's singing that song that she says is going to play at her wedding, the cinematography on that's amazing.
The
Like,
cinematography is good.
yeah, right before she gets hit, that's great. I love how this movie slowly reveals the connections and trauma that's left behind by Lola and her dad. Like, we don't realize until the end of the movie the whole trauma with Mia and why she is the way she is with her dad, Brent, and his whole situation, his dad dying and the way he is, and then the relationship he has with Holly. All the main characters are somewhat affected by the decisions that Lola and her dad made prior to the movie even starting.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were able to write a story and slowly like reveal all these connections and show the trauma left behind by these serial killers, I thought was a really genius way to write a movie.
Yeah, I think Australia has done an amazing job with these traumatic horror movies. You look at Talk to Me, you look at The Babadook, this movie, Lake Mungo. Like, Lake Mungo is, completely drenched in a traumatic event of essentially a child dying. I don't know what it is with Australia being able to tap into that and create such a good horror movie around these events that happen, to normal people that create an absolute fucking nightmare.
Yeah. Well, more on Lake Mungo soon. We'll
Yeah.
definitely be covering that one. But they all have a really good feel to them. There's a movie called The Tunnel, which I think is like Australia's
Yeah.
Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Super creepy scenes in that.
God, I remember watching
We
that forever ago.
we've seen quite a few different, whether it's paranormal or serial killer, or even something like The Tunnel, which is kind of on both sides of the spectrum, very found footage, and they all have a really good feel to them.
Yeah, they're very tight. They're very like, and I think it's because they're not passed on to writer. It's typically one writer. They're very tight stories, very good character driven stories. They all have a very good independent feel to them. They're doing fantastic job right now in horror.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll have to dig deeper into it, but apparently the distribution fucks a lot of movies over there. Like, you essentially got one chance at one big distribution, and if you don't get that, then you have to hope a distributor from another country picks you up.
Yeah, well, that is our opinion on The Loved Ones. Great pick. Thank you, a Flesh Suit Man. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or your pet cannibal zombie guy in the basement about the show. And we hope to see you next time.